back to G.I. Joe.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Painted Plastic. Brandon here with episode 3 of our Cobra Shock and All build. For this episode, we're going to finish up the rest of the mods. There's 3 more things I want to do before we are ready for paint. But yeah, once these mods are done, we're ready for paint. One is the headlight. That's the first one I want to get done. The other is the missile. Added some extra missiles to the vehicle. Really simple. We'll get into how we made that little post. And the last one is the gun, right? And for the gun, I basically just made a little box. I'll show you how we did that. Yeah, so I think we will start with the missile here. Like I said, I want to put one on the other side, right? So how did I make that? So I've got this polystyrene, right? It comes in a big sheet, but I just cut it off, right? And I cut 2 pieces to start with and glued them together. 2 pieces is the same width as a slot, right? So I glued those together and then kind of figured out what height I wanted off of the top of the deck, right? And cut it down to that. And then I took 2 more pieces and put one on either side. Let me grab another piece. One on either side and left the slightest ridge, right? And that's just so when the missile goes down, it'll stop, right? It won't slide all the way down. Glued those on. And then basically just sanded the entire thing, cut and sanded. Once it was all glued together, I shaped it with snips and ended up cutting it down to this, right? I don't even know if that's going to focus, but it's just 4 pieces of styrene, all glued together, sanded down, sanded all the edges smooth. And now that slot fits right in like that, right? Now we got a little missile holder. So basically I made one, right? And I liked the look and kind of the shape, how it swoops back, and the missile kind of swoops forward a bit, you know, instead of being like straight ahead, it kind of swoops up. And then I made a duplicate, pretty much an exact copy, right? A second one. And that's going to go on this side, right? Something like that. But yeah, to glue it on, simply used the plastic weld. To start with, I just put a little stripe just to kind of get the plastic ready, and a little bit on the bottom. And get it sort of lined up like I have the one on the other side. Just like that. Yep. All right, once I've got it where I want it, run a little bit around. I do sort of want to be careful on this side because I don't want to get any glue in that gas tank detail. So I'll just be careful when I get around there. There we go. And what I'll do is just let this dry. Am I even on camera? I'm not even on camera. I will let this dry completely, and I'll go back over it just to reinforce that joint. Not that it's going to bear much weight, but you know. Alright, I'm going to set that to the side and let it dry for a good while, probably at least 8 or 10 hours, and then I'll redo it. I know it sets up pretty quickly, but yeah, I do want to reinforce it. I think this one got 3 coats when it was all said and done. So, yep. Alright, I'm going to let that set and get together all the stuff we need for the next bit. Be right back. Alright everybody, the second mod I want to tackle is the headlight here. We're going to split this up a little bit because we're going to have to wait for the glue to dry on one part before we can move on. So yeah, I may skip around a little bit on this bit, but we're going to start with this. You remember I had the cheek panel, right, from the AT-AT, and with very little modification, take my snips here and just knock this post off for one, and then kind of top this. Watch your eyes. So now we got a nice flat edge, and none of that matters, it's all going to be inside. You take a square of polystyrene, set that on, and then pencil. And I draw into the little slice there, just so I know the orientation. And then, with just a sturdy pair of scissors, right? Slowly cut this out. Now, the scissors will have some trouble with the plastic a little bit, but as long as they're good sturdy scissors, you should be able to just cut it right out. And extra thin, since all of this is styrene, right, we'll just use the extra thin. And simply dab around the edge. It'll get sucked in. All right, set that to the side. While we wait for this to dry, I think we'll move over to the gun and kind of start that work, because there's going to be some gluing and drying and all over there too. So let me grab all that, and we'll do that while we wait for the headlight to dry. Be right back. Okay, so while we wait on that headlight to dry over there, I thought we would look at the gun and what needs to happen here. Basically, I just made a little square. Like I said, one side fits in the gun, the other side fits in the, which I don't have in front of me, the clip that attaches to the vehicle. That'll fit on this end. And how I made this was just crazy simple. It's basically 2 pieces of sprue, a piece like this that kind of makes a box, and then a thicker piece to make the base. And I mean, I'm not going to go through, you know, we're not actually going to make it, but long story short, all I used was a little extra thin and kind of stuck it in place on both sides, and then it got several coats of glue. Come here. So yeah, I'm not going to go through all that. I basically just glued these corners and went over them several times, probably 4 or 5 times by the time it was all done. But there's something I want to do. This, it fits in the gun, but it's a little bit floppy, right? What I think I'm going to do is fix this part to the gun. That way it won't move, and it'll just swivel on this axis. So to do that, I'm going to use Milliput, right? You guys have seen me use Milliput before. It's a 2-part epoxy putty, which I'm almost out of. Alright, so we will cut off a little piece of this part. Yeah, like I said, I've had this for probably 2 years, and I mean, there's still plenty, but I am running low. And we'll cut off an equal bit of that part. If you've never used Milliput, It's like I said, it's a 2-part epoxy, and when it dries, it is hard as a rock. You can sand it, you can paint it, you can do all the things to it. So then you take your 2 parts and just knead them together. And the instructions say until the color is uniform and 1 minute after that. So use your own judgment, but I normally just knead it until, you know, all the colors are blended. There we go. That should do. Pretty uniform in color. And what I want to do, let's see, I've got a pointy stick. What I want to do is kind of fill up the inside of that groove where the thing is going to go. And this part doesn't have to be neat, doesn't have to be tidy. I'm just trying to get some Milliput in that space. All right, got a fair bit in there now, and I'm going to take this bit and pop it in. Get off this little bit of excess around the edge. Right, make sure that's fairly even, and now I'm going to put a little bit over top just to kind of lock it in place. There we go. I'll smash that down. And like I said, when this dries, it will be rock hard. This thing will not move once the Milliput cures. Yeah, I mixed up way more than I needed, but that's all right. All right, so now we have that sort of fixed in place, right? There'll still be some work to do on this. Once it cures, I'm going to sand it and just, you know, clean it up a little bit. But for the most part, that is done, right? Just set that to the side and let it dry. While this is curing, we'll get back over to the headlight, and all that should be about ready to go. We'll finish that up. So give me 1 second. All right, so here's the headlight that we made. Everything is good and dry. I'm just going to take my snips and sort of nip off the excess here. So over here to the side, I've got some sandpaper, and that's what we're going to do. We're just going to go around sanding that edge. Alright, so that's the bulk of it, kind of whittled down a little bit. Now I'm going to switch over to sticks. I've got a few different grits here, and just kind of fine tune it manually. Make sure that's perfectly round, or, well, I mean, you know, as perfectly round as we can get it. Alright, so what's next? Well, to attach it to the hood, right, we've got a little spot there. You remember I had this. This is the piston for an AT-AT leg. It just so happens that that fits in perfectly to the cheek panel, right? So we just kind of do that, right? Now to get it in here, let's see, what did I do with my, did I not get, I didn't grab my pin vise. 1 second, talk amongst yourselves. Okay, sorry about that. Forgot to grab my pin vise. Got a bit here that is pretty much the same size as the thicker section here, because one thing we have to do is cut that down to length. Now, I've already cut that one, obviously, and I saved the end. So, line those up and snip this one off. There we go. Right, so now that will attach in there. And then I've also marked. I did the same mark on both sides and basically just lined up dots with corners, and yeah, found a spot that I liked. So we're going to carefully drill through that. Alright, now I've got a hole pretty much straight through the panel, right? But I want the headlight to go in this direction, so I'm going to kind of drill out so that the bit can be horizontal, right? Just like that. There we go. Let's do a little test fit. I've done all that off camera, probably. Something about like that. Alright, so that's pretty much how it's going to sit in there. The first thing I want to do is kind of lock in the headlight to the arm. So I'm just going to dab some extra thin around that. It'll soak into the joint. And then we'll move on with the headlight itself. All right, now that that's good and dry, we'll move down here, and for that we're going to go back to the plastic weld. So we're just going to dab a little plastic weld right in that joint, and again it'll seep in, and flip it over, and I'm going to put just a dab on the inside. That'll lock it in place. And there we have it, 2 headlights. I'm going to set this over to the side and let it dry. Been a lot of letting it dry this episode. Yeah, that's been the theme of the whole thing. So yeah, I'm gonna set that over there, let it dry, and we'll take a look at all of these mods that we've done once everything's cured and ready. Be right back. All right, everybody, here we go. All the mods are completed. Right, got the headlights done. I think they look pretty sharp. Got the gun mounted to the clip, and that is solid. Like I said, when that Milliput cures, it's solid as a rock. And last but not least, got the missiles installed, right? Got the new little post for the missiles. So, yep, pretty happy with these mods. And now the vehicle is pretty much ready for paint and primer. But we're going to hold off on that. The next episode is going to be about the driver. I always like to do the driver first, so I kind of have a color palette when I start doing this. Yeah, so stay tuned for episode 4. Until then, thanks for hanging out with me. Hope you enjoyed these mods. They were a lot of fun to do. Hope you found them interesting. See you on the next one. Bye-bye.
Where's John?
What's all the excitement?
Wakando! We can't find John. He was heading that way.
Oh, no. Check that old refrigerator.
Thanks, Wakando.
Remember, never get in anything that could close up and trap you.
Like an old trunk or an abandoned refrigerator. Now we know.
And knowing is half the battle.
G.I. Joe!